Hello, I'm Sergeant Host Eric, and this is Lieutenant Rachel, and welcome to
The Type Police.
Try as you might, you just can't hide, 'cause you're mistyped. And I've been waiting to pull you over all night. Type Police, Type Police, please pull that guy over. He says he's INTJ, but seems extroverted, sensing to me. I think he's ESFP or Type Police. And welcome back to the Type Police. So today we've got a perp on the line named Ghost of Jung. It was recommended to us, but I was not expecting, when I clicked one of Ghost of Jung's videos, to discover, what? This guy? This guy from Rational Typology? Oh no. That's basically what I thought. So I haven't watched any of this. Apparently this Ghost of Jung fellow considers himself an INTJ, so I'm going to take a look at it. Let's take a look and we'll see what we pulled these guys over, and I'm expressly type policing this Ghost of Jung fellow here. So we didn't pull, he was in the passenger seat. He had his seatbelt on. I think his name's Gabriel here. Basically, because I don't know if I really want to. A repeat of that earlier drama I had between us and that channel here. So I'm just going to call him the passenger on Ghost of Jung's channel. We're type policing expressly Ghost of Jung here. Alright, let's see what they have to say.
So we are back with episode 2 of Functionally Delusional. The gentleman across from you is Gabe from Rational Typology. Turns out we are going to make this a series, so you guys are in for a treat, and we actually have topics this time. Gabe came up with a really interesting idea. Let's talk about the idea of nihilism, but I also want to talk about nihilism as it relates to the INTJ, maybe some tips on how to not fall into some sort of like nihilistic, fatalistic trap in either like the way you perceive the world, or just like falling into sort of like a stupor or like lethargic lifestyle based on that. So I think there is a lot of different definitions. There's a Nietzschean definition of nihilism, but Gabe, why don't you kind of start on letting us know what you think about the topic, or do you have a precise definition for you?
Well, what I learned is that there's many different ways to define it, but for like a low resolution way of thinking about it, it's the belief that nothing inherently matters.
Okay. I think that is what the dictionary would say is the definition of it. I've read a couple things from people that have interpreted Nietzsche, and they said that it's actually like the most hyper-realistic way to think about the world. Sort of like there's no... Sorry, go ahead.
Well, by that definition, I am a nihilist. Like that is the most sound conclusion you can get to, because then you'd have to consent to the idea that there is a fundamental purpose, but then it's like, why would that exist across species? It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Now, do you think that people get confused with fatalism, that like nothing you do matters?
Yeah, which I don't agree with, because things that you do matter to you and to people around you. Because for me, the way to escape the trap is to focus on the experience itself. Like, are you adding to your experience and the experience of people around you in a positive way?
So nihilism inherently is not positive or negative. There's no value system assigned to it.
No.
Okay.
Well, I guess it excludes things like gods, because it would have to. Because then if there were gods, it would be an inherent purpose.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think one of the important things to distinguish is that.
Okay, well, I mean, right off the bat, the analysis of nihilism is chock full of contradictions, right? It's saying there's no meaning to anything, and he proceeds to do nothing but ascribe meaning to it. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. That has nothing to do with their types. Right off the bat, I will say, though, that Ghost of Jung seems more than polar FE as an initial gut response.
More than polar.
But let's give him some more time to see what he has to say. We haven't given him much time to say much.
Fatalism is just resigned to the fact it's like a negative form of predestination, where it's just like nothing matters. Some people get ahead, some people don't. Good people die for no reason. Bad people get ahead. It's like that sort of resigning to basically just like, why don't you off yourself then? I mean, that's always my conclusion.
Well, it's like if nothing, like if everything's pointless, then why do anything? Like that's when it can get unhealthy, I think.
The funny part about it is I think that people that subscribe to the idea of fatalism really kind of almost market themselves as like that thing and kind of can become popular by saying nothing matters. But definitely they actually they do not want to not exist. They would love to keep existing.
Yeah, but that's because you want to. And that gets back to my position, where if you want to do it and it adds to your existence and people around you in a positive way, then you should do it.
Okay. Do you think that the INTJ is the most susceptible to falling into, or I won't say falling into, but I guess on both sides, the positive side of nihilism and then also the negative side? Are we more susceptible?
I think so, and this is my reasoning for it. I think that most INTJs are good at predicting things. That's kind of the whole setup. We have full predicting. Like if we were a video game character, we would be that would be our class. The guys that predicts all the girls. And from a relatively young age, you'll be able to figure out other people's failure states. So I used to say, what will make other people mess up? And you probably try to tell the people how to not mess up, and then they will ignore you. And that'll happen
Okay, let's try to find one with Ghost of Jung without this guy in it. Because we gotta see what Ghost of Jung has to say without homie's inclusion in the business. The positive and negative side of nihilism. It's like saying it's like saying the heavy and light side of a vacuum. It makes no sense at all. I don't know what else to say about it, but
the INTJ in the workplace. The INTJ can be both your top performer and your most difficult and independent. By independent, I mean not a team player. The INTJ is known for being the most independent of all types, and thus do not always feel like they need other people around them to accomplish tasks. And to others, they may come across as arrogant and cold, and in some negative aspects, very condescending. I want to go through the pros and the cons of the INTJ at work so you can judge what this person will bring to your organization for better or worse. INTJs are very good at learning the system by which your organization operates, whether that's a sales organization or whether it's like in manufacturing. One thing they're very good at is figuring out inefficiencies in that system and quickly coming up with ideas to make it better. Bosses will find that INTJs do not need their hand held after that initial learning or training session when they're being onboarded in a company. They can pretty much run autonomously and ask a few questions along the way if they really get stuck. An INTJ will be great at brainstorming sessions, strategic sessions about what the future of the company is going to look like because they have a reservoir of knowledge and just general ideas out there to help with some of these strategy meetings. As they grow within an organization, they're going to want to take on more responsibility. This is great for a leader who wants to grow the organization from within, so they can take an INTJ and say, all right, learn this part of the business, and they will do it quickly. The pros of an INTJ will always be around their strategy, understanding the system, and then being able to fix inefficiencies so your organization runs a lot smoother. Now for the cons, they're arrogant and stubborn. Given that they're one of the most intellectual and independent types, a lot of their attitudes, both in the way that they communicate and the way that they look at people, they might seem like they are condescendingly thinking this person is inferior. On the same side of that token is another issue, another con, which is respect for authority is almost zero if they don't believe that you are competent. They don't care if you're the president, CEO, or the chairman. If you aren't able to, in their mind, keep up with you intellectually, any advice, your opinion, disregarded, which is a very big deal because obviously someone could be wrong one time, but the next thing they said he was correct. So the INTJ can be very stubborn in their approach to people, new ideas, things they don't view as intellectually stimulating.
thoughts on this so far?
I still can't. It sounds like he knows a lot about INTJs, but there's also information that I didn't agree with totally.
This sort of desire to advance and take on a leadership role seems kind of, I don't know. I don't see INTJs as seeking leadership a lot.
Yeah. And they do question things, INTJs.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, here we're faced with the same problem we were the other day, which is we got somebody who's describing an INTJ not inaccurately exactly, but doesn't seem to be behaving exactly in affect like an INTJ. Let's give him a little bit more time on this one and then try another video.
And on the same side of that, they're really bad communicators because of their intuition and their introversion. Some of their ideas are just too abstract they're not good at talking about them. So they'll be like, yeah, okay, I have this idea for the direction of the company, but it's like, you know what I'm saying, right? And they're constantly trying to get their ideas into the verbal realm instead of just in their own head. So a lot of them can be seen as too far out, or their ideas don't have any tangible value. So that's also an issue too, is sometimes in email, their responses are like 4 steps ahead and not addressing the actual question or concern that was asked of them. The last thing is attention to detail that I feel like is an issue within organizations that deal with INTJ is details and administrative tasks. Like something as simple as like filling out a spreadsheet correctly or punctuating an email or spell checking can sometimes, that introversion again with that intuition is like, you get what I'm saying, right? I mean, you understood generally what I was saying. And
the assumption that people understand things can cause so many different errors in understanding, which ultimately leads to the INTJ unfortunately being like,
well, this person's just not smart enough. They just don't get me. And that's what I've said in my other videos about it's not an intelligence thing, it's a type issue. So the INTJ is somebody that you want in your strategy sessions. They're very good at the top organizations where they're not necessarily dealing face-to-face with people and emotions and feelings. They're taking broad strokes.
Okay, just on an affect level, would this guy seem to talk as one would expect an INTJ to talk? That's why I slowed it back down to regular speed there. Do you want to hear some more?
Well, I think to answer your question, I would say no. I would say no.
Oh, and now, granted, that's not definitive or anything, but
Right.
he doesn't sound like any INTJ I've ever met before. He sounds kind of STP-ish or something. But, I mean, that's not definitive again. Let's see what else he says. Let's see if we can find another video. I'm feeling increasingly confident that he's not an INTJ.
Yes.
But I'm having trouble pinning down what he is. Let's take a look at the old miggity meow, as they say. So by looking at the miggity meow, what we do here is, first of all, we establish via the miggity meow dogs that they have alerted to it, and that makes it okay. Uploads. Well, let's try the videos. What Jordan Peterson gets wrong. Let's see what he has to say about this.
I have to say, I love me some Jordan P. I've listened to his lectures. I even read his first book. I think he nails it like 80% of the time, but there's that 20% that just pisses me off about his love for Big Five and his dismissal of MBTI. We have to understand, first and foremost, Jordy P is an academic. Academia, including those like Adam Grant, are bought into the Big Five as the only psychometric tool that works due to its high levels of validity and reliability. Jordy P in the echo chamber of academia, they always circle the wagons around the Big Five. Now, so I want to do a very short video breaking down some of his points, but I'm going to warn you up front. Like, I'm not taking any scientific angle of arguing for validation, test, retest, R factor analysis, or Cronbach alpha, anything like that. Literally, nobody cares about this except for academics. Once you learn the cognitive functions and even go deeper than that, you can type yourself perfectly without needing a validated tool.
And the Myers-Briggs has zero predictive utility with regards to performance prediction.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't try to do that. It doesn't say that it does that. So right off the bat, it's a straw man. He's attacking something that Myers-Briggs has never said it's going to predict behavior.
This guy seems...
So why do people use it? Oh, here's one reason. It doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. Everybody wins, right?
Okay. This guy seems, to kind of be arguing the point too well for the INTJ. This is interesting. Well, let's see what else he had to say. This guy is proving more interesting than I anticipated. Sorry to keep you here at the curb for such a long time, sir, but I need to learn more about you.
Yes.
Do you really find him at the moment confusing?
Yeah.
Let's see what pops up.
And so then you think, well, do corporations really care whether or not everybody wins when they're being tested? And the answer to that is yes, much more often than you would think. So we hit all sorts of barriers. That was one. The problem with tests that very well on them.
The problem with tests that work is that the people who take them don't do well on them. they don't do well, as in they don't properly take it correctly, or they don't understand it, or they don't get the right answers. That's kind of a really bad way to describe it. These tests are so good and they work, but no one knows how to actually do them correctly. Interesting take. To me, this is like a non-argument or even pretty incoherent.
And then the other problem is that people are reasoning at all. They're really bad at it. And so, for example, they don't know the difference between a percentage and its own.
Let me properly respond to that, because that guy did not properly respond to that at all. So what Jordan Peterson there is saying that the problem with tests that are good is that most people don't do well on them. He's talking about assessments of skills, in which case you're naturally going to get a bell curve kind of distribution. So it will be the case that most people won't end up in the top percentage of things. Anytime you're measuring something in that metric, it's going to be the case that most people don't end up as an outlier in terms of the data on either end of the matter. That's sort of definitionally the case. But the point is, what personality is if we misunderstand personality, only when we misunderstand personality do we assess it as an accumulation of life skills that one does well or poorly on. Instead, they're attentional manners that define who one is and how one approaches the world. His critique here of Jordan Peterson's critique of MBTI is philosophically tone deaf. In other words, it refuses to accept that there's any element of consciousness that can't be reduced to utility fundamentally. And of course, that's ridiculous, because it's projecting his own frame bias and saying only those aspects of personality that can be turned into scoring well or poorly on are those aspects of personality that matter. And of course, and only tests that test those things are the only tests that matter, or the only tests that exist, frankly, is what he's basically presuming his intellectual work here on, right? And, as far as statistical analysis, most people can't do statistical analysis. The issue ultimately rarely comes down to the statistical analysis, right? It's a larger frame issue that comes into play. So the thing is, this Ghost of Jung is correct to critique this, but I thought he did a pretty good job with the first point. He did a terrible job with the second point. What I just explained is why there's a problem with what Jordan Peterson is saying there, right? Jordan Peterson is failing to acknowledge the different kinds of assessments assess things differently, and that non-normative assessments are not necessarily bad. They can tell you who somebody is or what somebody is without telling you whether it's better or worse. If I do a genetic test to determine what species you are, I'm not saying, you're the inferior fruit fly, whereas I am the superior human being, even if that's true, right? You don't have to frame it normatively. So Jordan Peterson's being either disingenuous or dumb here, one of the two. And I didn't intend this to be a Jordan Peterson critique video, but the type police have to step in here and say, come on, man, you can do better than that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's see if we can find some Ghost of Jung where he's actually talking. So yeah, Jordan Peterson, come on, seriously. Let's just pretend there's just one kind of assessment. They're all normative, and non-normative assessments are bad. Do you ever just talk by yourself, mister? About whatever? Let me just hear you talking about something. By yourself. Do you always have to have a friend? What's up with that?
Does your type change? Well, some people think it does, but if we stick to the Jungian theory, it does not. And there are many ways where people can seem like their type has changed throughout life, and there are many circumstances which will actually bring up a, quote, mistyping of yourself, and I will bring those up to you as well. I'll tell you about them, but people generally cannot change their type. The thought goes that by the time you're 16, you've pretty much solidified your innate preferences. You prefer to do things a certain way, life or nurture of how you grow up or what job you're in can seem to skew well, I was this at one point, but now I'm over here. What Jung said and what Isabel and Catherine Meyer said is basically that there are a couple things that would skew the results that you could say, when I was 16, I was this, but now I'm 40, now I'm this. That's just called type development. You develop certain parts of your personality as you learn and grow about in life, and you discover that you can do certain things you weren't able to do when you were younger. So some of the things that would cause a mistype or for you to get a different response than you're normally getting on an assessment would be trauma or going through a major life change. Like, for example, say alcoholism, and you take the test in the midst of going through rehab, or childbirth.
Thoughts?
He's what he's saying is very interesting, and I think he has analyzed it a lot. And I don't necessarily disagree with him. I just don't think he's an INTJ.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I don't know how to exactly articulate why.
It's so true.
He's pretty TI in his reasoning.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
He's doing TI critiques here. Although he is doing that sort of appeal to the source kind of thing. But is there enough evidence to take this guy to the slammer?
Like, he doesn't. So, INTJ is FE polar, right?
He certainly doesn't seem FE
He
polar.
doesn't.
Let's let him go for a little while longer.
Yeah.
Or a job change, or something that's causing you a lot of stress where you cannot think about yourself outside of the moment that you are in right now. A lot of the other mistypes come from you looking at yourself through the lens of your job. So you think about it in terms of how you are at work or how you represent yourself at work, but your work, as we know, is not a great example of who you truly are as a person. So when you administer the test as an MBTI practitioner, the way to do it is to tell people, imagine taking this assessment with no one to report to. You've got no one to think about your answers or stand over your shoulder and look down at you and make sure that you're putting the answer that you believe they would want. So to sum it up, your type does not change. Jung believed that there are 3 phases of development, phase 1, 2, and 3, and that phase 1 was from 0 to 30, and then 30 to 50, and then 50 plus. And basically that as you go through the phases of life, you will start to develop unseen or shadow parts of your personality a little bit better, which can be construed as changing your type. I hope that answers any questions about whether or not type can change.
I mean, I think that was a good response. I think that his correction from test to assessment is very TI indicative. I think that everything about it was very TI.
Yes, it sounded very TI.
There's nothing about this guy that sounds TE to me, really.
No. And his FE seems good too.
I agree. I don't know what type he is exactly. But
STP, like, ISTP came to mind at one point, but again, I don't know.
that does explain somewhat why he wants to always have a friend. Like, if you look at Benjamin, he's always interviewing someone. ISTPs don't like to carry the thoughts a lot, but that seems like it was edited down a little bit. He may be a little more talkative than I expect an ISTP to be. I'm not sure what type he is.
I don't know.
Does he belong in the slammer? He does belong in the slammer.
Yes.
But do we really have sufficient cause to put him in the slammer?
Okay, so I say if we can get 3 things that are in INTJ examples.
Okay, well let's look for another video where he's talking about himself. Okay, so it's like, look, sir, I know we're making you wait here a long time, but it is the case that you deserve to be in the slammer almost for sure. And then the question becomes, do we have, if we're doing this by the book, can we put you in the slammer?
How do you win over your ESTJ boss? A couple things, and I think they work and gain you a lot of respect in the eyes of the ESTJ. The ESTJ boss, first and foremost, desires action and results. So, for example, if they walk into the office and they see you there working, headphone in, talking to a customer, and you're typing away, you get a point in their mind. And that actually gains you respect as well. Now, I would not expect them to walk over to you and shake your hand and pat you on the back, but just know that they have gained loyalty, you have gained their loyalty, and you've won in their mind. A problem that I've experienced with other types approaching ESTJs is they are not, quote, visionaries in the sense that an ENTJ or an INTJ or any introverted intuitive type might want them to be. So coming to an ESTJ boss and saying, boss, I have this great idea. It's going to be world changing. It's going to break the mold of our product. Just think about how dynamic it's going to be. And if you don't come to them with some statistics and a projection and a Q1, Q2 chart of how this is going to actually work and how it's going to affect the bottom line and how they're going to afford it, I would readily expect your idea to be, hey, you know what, that's awesome, but it's not how we do things or it's not how we've done it. They're not going to be able to see the vision unless you give it to them in a sensory perspective. So you can come in there with the enthusiasm, but it needs to be underpinned by facts and data, because then you will be able to convince the ESTJ that though the way they've traditionally done it works, here's a way that you can still follow in line with what's worked for the tradition, but in a way that they can see it. ESTJs, above all else, like I mentioned, they want results, but even if, say, the results don't necessarily work, they like to see that you've tried something and it didn't work and moved on. So they appreciate people just doing things for the sake of doing things and then going, okay, that didn't work, but you pivoted and you made that work. That's admirable to them. And they might be even a little bit like, I wish I had that quality that you have, but it still gains their respect. And I think the two things, much like the ISTJ they respect, are just loyalty and respect for their way they do things. And people that tend to contest the way things are done, like an ENTP, would have a very tough relationship, because while the ESTJ is trying to control the outer world by keeping things in place and stable, other types like the ENFP or ENTP are instantly coming into, how can we break this and do it different? So the ESTJ values respect, like I said. If they see you working hard, just because they don't acknowledge you, believe me, they notice, and that puts a little checkbox, a little tally, like, okay, that person, I like them, they're building some trust with me. That's how I would approach the ESTJ in the workplace and in life in general, but more in the corporate environment where you're most likely to be dealing with them. So if you're looking for more advice on how to deal with certain bosses or colleagues in your workplace, reach out to me, let me know.
Okay, I mean, that seems like excellent advice and very FE savvy as well.
I hear an I when he speaks, but not, I wouldn't say dominant. Like, it's, like, to me...
You're still thinking STP.
Yeah, but
too. I mean, that's a very TI-ish, even though it seems to give you advice on how to deal with them, and like, it's really an analysis of how the two sets of cognitive processes might engage. It's interesting that he uses an ENTP as an example of contrasting with an ESTJ. I mean, it's a natural one to use, and what he's saying there is right on the money, actually. I mean, but it's almost too right on the money for an INTJ, and it's too smoothly delivered or something,
Yes.
So, boy, this is a tough call.
It really is.
I respect his analysis, but I don't think he's an INTJ.
Right. I feel the same way. I respect his analysis, and he has a lot of really good things to say, but I don't think he's an INTJ.
All right, well, we're going to have to do it. You know what time it is.
Time to put him in the slammer.
It's slammer time. So, go ahead, get in the back of the car, get your handcuffs on. Don't worry, we're going to put you in the slammer, in a nice part of the slammer. And we're going to put you right next to the drinking fountain, okay? You like that. You'll be happy to be next to the drinking fountain. A lot of the jailbirds will hang out there and talk about things. It's fun. you get some extra stuff too. There you go. You are now officially in Alcatraz. So, sorry for the rough treatment. Sorry that Rachel beat you with her baton. She does that, you know.
Comes with the job.
A little type police violence comes with the job, exactly. Alright, so, have fun in Type Jail. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Try as you might, you just can't hide, 'cause you're mistyped. And I've been waiting to pull you over all night. Type police, type police. Please pull that guy over. He says he's INTP, but seems extroverted, sensing to me. I think he's ESFP or type police. See you next time.